Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Michigan has some real problems coming out of that Washington game, and obviously just a frustrating loss for us Michigan fans on the road against Washington. But I think there are some real problems that are rearing their ugly head for Michigan over the early parts of the 2024 season. Now, it is highlighted by the quarterback play, which is nowhere near good enough to win at the level that Michigan expects to win at. That being said, I do think there are some other problems that are happening within this Michigan team that I want to talk about as well. Now, before we get into it, to the Michigan fans, I'm sure many of y'all are just as, if not more, frustrated than I am with this Michigan team. There are a lot of different areas about this Michigan team that you can be frustrated with. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section, and more importantly, not only what you're frustrated with, but how do you think Michigan goes about fixing it over the next couple of weeks and heading into the 2024 offseason? Appreciate you guys rocking with it. The Michigan fans through the highs, the lows of the last 12 months. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start on the defensive side of the football. Now, it is very important to note that this Michigan defense is getting done a disservice by this Michigan offense. Like we've seen multiple times, specifically in second half of football games, where this Michigan offense can't stay on the football field. They're giving short fields to the opposing offense with turnovers. This Michigan offense isn't helping this Michigan defense, but I think this Michigan defense is not nearly what I think a lot of people expected it to be heading into 2024. At the end of the day, you still have multiple dudes that will be top 100 picks in the NFL draft, including two guys that are probably going to be top 10 picks in Mason Graham and Will Johnson. But you look at Josiah Stewart, you look at Ernest Hausman and Jay Sean Barham. There's a lot of talent on this Michigan defense. And for me personally, I just don't think they're playing to that talent level. And I think it starts with a little frustration coming from how Wink is running this defense. I go back and watch that Washington game, and I'm going to be the first one to say, like, there's a reason I ain't no defensive coordinator at a Power Four level. But from what I've seen, Michigan is kind of just blindly just bringing pressure, and we knew that's part of what Wink Martindale wants to do, right? He wants to vary looks, he wants to be aggressive, he wants to bring heat on the opposing quarterback. Why are we bringing so much heat when Michigan is doing just fine getting pressure on the quarterback with their front four? And you go back to that football game and say, I mean, Josiah Stewart had a 50% pass rush win rate. I mean, he was unblockable coming off the edge. Mason Graham, 25% win rate. TJ Guy, 30% pass rush win rate. We were winning with our front four. And it seemed like Wink Martindale wanted to consistently continue to bring pressure, leaving some of our defensive backs. And obviously, we were banged up in the secondary. We were struggling in the secondary. We continued to leave guys like Jair Hill on islands when it was pretty clear early in that football game he was struggling. That didn't really make much sense to me. Like, I get that you want to bring pressure. That is your MO. That is your, that's kind of your trait as a defensive coordinator. If you're getting pressure with your front four, why are we bringing 5 and 6 and leaving some of our defensive backs who are struggling on islands? I think, secondly, we came into this football game and said, we got to be able to tackle in space. Michigan just did it. You look at Washington, 187 yards after the catch. And I think equally frustrating is we were giving them a lot of space in that passing attack. There was a lot of soft zone coverage. We weren't necessarily testing these Washington wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. And I think Giles Jackson's a very good football player. I think Denzel Boston, very good football player. But at the end of the day, I like those matchups for our Michigan defensive backs. We know that Washington is not going to consistently push the ball down the field. That's just not what they've done. That's not how Jed Fish runs the offense. And quite frankly, that's not what Will Rogers, the quarterback, does best. We know we were going to get a lot of short, intermediate passing concepts, and we were just allowing Washington to do exactly what they wanted, which is get the football out quick and make people miss in space. And Michigan, it kind of neutralized their pass rush with the quick game. We just didn't have enough time to get after the quarterback. But I think more importantly, we were giving them the short intermediate route trees pretty much all day. And that plays right into what Washington wanted to do on offense. Quite frankly, I think Wink Martindale just got out coached. And that's a problem, especially with how talented this Michigan defense is. Look, I get that the Michigan offense isn't helping the defense very much. 429 yards of total offense for Washington is just not good enough if you're a Michigan defense. We're going to have multiple guys that are drafted in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. This Michigan defense should be significantly better on defense. I think we're getting out coached. I think we're not playing nearly as disciplined football as we were last year. I mean, how many times do we see guys like Mikey Sandstrill just blatantly miss tackles in the open space? We didn't do that last year. We're doing it a lot this year, and I think it has a lot to do with Michigan just not putting our guys in the best situations to be successful. And we kind of let Washington do exactly what they wanted to do on the offensive side of the football. Now, flipping over to the offense, obviously, this is where the biggest problem is for this Michigan team. Is it Jaden Davis time? It seems like a lot of Michigan fans might think that. I think there's two very, very reasonable takes, one for Jaden Davis and one not. I think the take for Jaden Davis to get some playing time for this Michigan offense would be, look, Jack Tuttle's not going to be on this roster next year. Alex Orji, we kind of know, is not going to be our starting quarterback next year. Davis Warren's probably not either. And quite frankly, you just benched Davis Warren, you just benched Alex Orji. It's going to be hard to go back to those two quarterbacks after you pulled them and benched them. And so it's probably going to be Jack Tuttle going through the rest of 2024. I think you saw some good things from Jack Tuttle, but I also think we've seen enough of Jack Tuttle. He's a 7th-year guy to know that he's probably not the quarterback that beats Ohio State and Oregon. Why is it time potentially for Jaden Davis? I think number one, it's an unknown commodity. And I think it's kind of clear that right now at quarterback, like we're just trying to find answers. But I think more importantly, if you wanted to argue for Jaden Davis to get some time, I think it'd be because you want to know what you have with him going into 2025. I think it's pretty clear right now, Michigan probably not going to be competing for a national championship. In 2025, you're looking for a big kind of a step in the right direction for Sherrone Moore. It probably right now you'd probably project Jaden Davis to be the guy. Right now, I would say, why don't you give him some work, see what he can do when the live bullets are flying on Saturdays? Then do we need to go into the transfer portal and address the quarterback position? That's kind of what I'm looking at, right? Because if you don't play Jaden Davis at all in 2024, you don't know what you have with him heading into 2025. Then you don't really know if you need to go to the transfer portal and grab a quarterback. But if you do play Jaden Davis, he either is going to show you some really good things or show you that he might need another year of development. I think that would make a lot of sense. Now, the argument to say keep Jaden Davis in the red shirt, let him continue to sit the bench and kind of learn and develop would be what's Jaden Davis going to do? I look at this Michigan offense and say there's just not many difference makers on the football field in terms of pass catchers. Outside of Colston Loveland, there's not many guys that are scaring you on this Michigan offense. And Marion Walker made a really nice catch on a little bit of a dig route from Jack Tuttle. Us Michigan fans were so excited about that. That's kind of standard. Like we saw Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson do that all the time in 2023. We shouldn't be as excited about just a wide receiver creating some separation, holding on to the football as we all were on Saturday night. My biggest problem with potentially playing Jaden Davis is you're not really putting him in a great position to be successful because the talent around the quarterback is such a problem. And I think that falls on the coaching staff in terms of not only player development, but let's just be frank about it. We are not getting elite wide receivers coming out of the high school ranks. So yeah, the development hasn't necessarily been great. Like you want to see more from guys like Tyler Morris, who were top 150 national prospects coming out of high school. But at the same time, we just don't have that many difference makers coming from the high school ranks. So I think the recruiting efforts need to be significantly better if Michigan wants to have a balanced attack. I think secondly, the development's got to get better. And that's something that Sherrone Moore is going to have to evaluate going into the offseason of 2024. I think the last thing I want to talk about really quick. So again, I don't necessarily know if I have the perfect answer for Jaden Davis. I'd probably play Jack Tuttle going post bye week just because I think he showed you the most balance. Like we started to run the football a little bit better with Jack Tuttle because defenses were respecting what we could do throwing the football. Jack Tuttle showed you some good things. Obviously, there were some bad things too. But it was for that quarter and a half, that was the best way we've seen our Michigan offense look all year. And so I think that is exciting if you're a Michigan fan. Last thing I want to talk about it, and this is probably, Sherrone Moore is a new head coach continuing, and that was part of the concern we had when we hired Sherrone Moore. Was yeah, he was an interim head coach, but he was never like a head coach that was running this program. That was Jim. You're definitely getting an element of Sherrone Moore learning on the fly. And I think a lot of Michigan fans kind of knew that was happening and might be okay with that for the 2024 season. But the amount of injuries that we seem to be picking up during practice, that's a problem. And Sherrone Moore's been very vocal. Like, we're having physical practices. We are trying to get better as a football team. But in the 6 days between when we played Minnesota and then went on the road to play Washington, Derek Moore gets hurt, doesn't play. You get Amir Hall gets hurt, doesn't play. A laundry list of guys that got hurt. Jimmy Rolder got hurt, doesn't play. What's going on in this practice that we are losing key contributors on both? Miles Hinton doesn't play. Dominic Gadice at center doesn't play. Now all the names are coming back to me now. What are we doing in practice where we're losing multiple guys in our two deep during a practice week? I also think that can't happen. I mean, if guys get hurt in the game, there's not much you can do, and that's unfortunate. And sometimes you're going to have injuries during practice, and again, that sucks, but it's part of football. Losing 5, 6 guys that were healthy and playing against Minnesota, and then suddenly aren't healthy against Washington to play, legitimate difference makers for our team. That seems to be a problem as well. And so I think Sherrone Moore might need to take a look at how we're practicing. And yeah, we want to be physical. We want to get better during our off weeks and practice weeks, but you gotta blend it. You can't lose half your roster in practice due to injury. And so there are some things that, again, I think it's highlighted by the quarterback position, no doubt about it. But there are some other problems that you're seeing with this Michigan team that I think are concerning. I think we knew this would be. I think a lot of Michigan fans, yeah, we were excited and optimistic about heading into 2024, but I think a lot of Michigan fans knew when you have to replace arguably the best quarterback that we've seen play at Michigan, when you have to replace every single one of your starting offensive linemen, when you have to replace almost an entire coaching staff, like there were always going to be some growing pains. But some of these growing pains, I think, need to be addressed for Sherrone Moore to have success at Michigan. Again, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. If you want to just let out your frustration, do so as well. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.